Hello, everybody. I met this beautiful lady, Alina Reed, when we were at a BX meeting, actually.
Mm.
And we were talking about death and preparations for death. And it's really, really important. And Alina shared with me that she's developed this amazing booklet called Final Farewell. So, Alina, what led you? And would you like to introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do?
Kia ora, everyone. My name is Alina, and I am the founder of Final Farewell. It's This book came about after working at Mary Potter Hospice for 8 years. I was working in the inpatient unit, so saw a lot of goings on, family interactions, etc. During that time. People bringing in coffins with photos on them, or people drawing on them, living funerals and things like this, which was a real eye-opener to me. During that time, my father passed away from pancreatic cancer as well. And before he passed away, I was confident in talking about death and dying, and I was trying to get answers out of him for, what he would like for his final celebration. But of course, he was focused on living and not on what was inevitable. So when it came to the funeral time, there were some unanswered questions. And so I kind of felt we didn't represent him in his true light. He was from the Air Force, and he was now an elder in his religion, etc. So, bringing those other aspects of his life that people wouldn't have necessarily known about. And following that, I thought, I don't want that for my daughters when I go. So I developed this book called My Final Farewell. Here's one version of it. And I wanted to ensure that everything was documented so that when my time does come, the girls have a detailed list of things to follow, all the correct details, and things that really show who I was, well, as a person at
Mm,
that time, because I see it as a celebration of our lives, of what we've accomplished, etc. It's like we have a celebration for a birth, so why don't we have a celebration of
yeah.
someone's life? And so people go away feeling like, yes, that truly represented that person. We go to many funerals where some of them are like, that wasn't the person that I knew,
Yes.
and you feel quite lost, like it doesn't fill a gap around grief. And then others are like, oh, that just was spot on. It really represented the person. So part of my goal is to really encourage people to start having those death and dying conversations. Also, from a financial viewpoint, it can save a lot of money if things are pre-planned and avoid um, family disputes, because a lot of times, people go head to head because everything's not clear. Mum told this person one thing and told someone else another thing. It could be around cremation or burial. So
Mm.
it's about having those open conversations and laying it all out so that it's less stressful, when we're going through that grieving process of losing a
Mm.
loved one. So
Yeah.
that's how
And
it all
I
came about.
and I think also the fact that it's documenting it. So
Yes.
it's very clear and
Mm.
clearly laid out. And also like what assets have you got?
Exactly. Mhm.
Otherwise, people are left searching. Where is your will? Where are
Mhm.
all these documents? Your social
Exactly.
media platforms?
Yes. I actually received a message the other day from a friend who said, oh, do you know anyone that can hack computers because the husband has passed away and nobody has passwords to anything? That's an added stress we don't need, or that person does, or family doesn't need in their lives. And this simple documenting of your whole name as well, and date of birth and where you're from, so that when it goes to submitting the death certificate, that runs smoothly and there's no backwards and forwards. So it's just taking out all those unnecessary prolonging of processes as well.
And
Mm.
prevention of family arguments and
Yes,
disputes.
absolutely. Yeah.
Because I've experienced that things go to a court or
Mm.
lawyers, and
Yeah.
who benefits? it's not the family, it's the
No,
lawyers who benefit. And then it
exactly.
causes grief in the family because they're arguing with each other because I thought this, I thought that.
Yeah, exactly.
The
Mm.
disputes occur that way, and it causes so much more angst and anxiety.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't think people realize that you don't actually need to go through a funeral director either. You know, you can personalize it. You could have, I never knew about death doulas and a really important role that they can play in helping ensure that there's good communication between the person who's dying and the medical team and the family, so they can kind of smooth things out and articulate things so everyone's on the same page and advocate for the dying person. And then you've got having being shrouded, so in beautiful silk instead of having a coffin, or having more personalized coffins, or there's water I think it's aquafiction, I can't remember, it's just come to
Mm.
New Zealand now. You know, so there are different ways, eco-friendly funerals. If like for me, I'm of Māori descent, and so I kind of want a kind of a tangi style funeral because I
Mm.
love the thought of my whānau being around me, you know, having a lot of fun reminiscing and talking and being with me during that time. But you don't know what your family wants unless you actually have these discussions, whether my mum is more private, and so she just wants to be tucked away in a funeral home. She doesn't
Yeah.
want everyone staring at her, you know, so it's important to have those conversations as well. Mm,
And I think that your booklet helps to open up that conversation
mm,
because it's not only the elderly that need to have these
no,
conversations. As we're well aware, there's a lot of young people who are committing suicide, or,
mm,
and I've ventured this with my son who's just turned 34. He should have a will, he should have all this information so that
yeah,
we're clear about what his desires, wishes would be. I
mm,
can say,
absolutely.
but he has a partner and he's got a 4-year-old daughter. They
Mm,
also have their own thoughts, but what does he want?
mm,
And so it's having that conversation, being able to say, love you, you're my best friend, Alina,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
But what have
yeah,
you planned? You know,
yeah,
um,
exactly. I'd
maybe
like,
you can't have the conversation with the relatives, but maybe their best friend
mm,
might be able to have it
yeah.
sometimes.
I think that's one of the hardest things is broaching the subject. And a good segue into it is by saying, oh, I went to a funeral recently and they had featured this, etc. So I'd like that for mine. Or like with my sister, music's quite a big thing. And it's like, oh, I would really love this music at my funeral. What would you like at yours? Or you know, with teens, if you're having a conversation, you don't want to be looking at them front on. And this is the type of situation as well. So having that conversation while you're in the car, because then you're not, you know, turned and looking at that person. So it's a bit more relaxed. Or if you're cooking and you've got your back to the people, but you just kind of bring up, oh, I'd like this, or oh, what do you think about this? You know, it doesn't need to be confronting, and it doesn't bring about death, you know, and there's that preconceived idea that, you know, if you're going to talk about it, that it's going to happen, you know, very soon, which is not the case.
No, it just
One,
lays the pathway so that if anything does happen,
mm,
all that stress is taken away.
yeah, there's one other thing I wanted to mention before, and it's about the importance of documenting who you have impacted in your life because, you know, we're of a certain age now and we would have been part of community groups, traveled overseas, we still may have connections there, etc. So by documenting all these people, then they can actually grieve because they've actually found out at the time that someone who's impacted their life has passed on, instead of having a conversation with someone years later and then it hitting them. It just hits quite differently, and I guess they grieve in a different way as well. So, you know, even taking the time to document who you've had contact with, or, you know, past employees, just having one contact if they're still there who can actually let everyone else know in the organization. It just helps. those in the outer circle go through the grieving process a bit differently as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because actually, death is just a transition.
it is. Absolutely. It is.
And I was, when you were talking about that, I was thinking, yep, there could be certain photos I wouldn't want
Yes,
shown or on a
absolutely.
slideshow. You
And
know?
that's another thing, it comes down to some of us have had multiple marriages or long-term relationships. How do you navigate those as well? Or how is your family going to navigate those in the process as well?
Yeah,
So, there's a lot to think about. And, that's a huge, well, I don't want to call it a burden, but it's a lot for, your loved ones to have to deal with once we're gone. So,
yeah.
um,
And that's the beauty of your book, which
mm,
people can access if they
yes,
so desire.
they
And how
can.
would they get in touch with you if they wish to find out more
So
about
they
your
can
book?
look at the website finalfarewell.nz. On there, we've got lots of different designs, but the template is the same. I just wanted it to be more personalized so we can do bespoke designs as well.
Yeah.
We also have it in digital form and hard copy. I was trying to find other ways to help people actually start documenting it. So I created a course. It's a 7 module course that guides people through every step. And we've also got a really extensive booklet. Instead of searching for information on the website, it has everything in there, the different types of services you would like, the differences between cremation and burial, and all these other aspects. So it kind of follows what the template of my final farewell. So there's that as another option as well. Otherwise, people can email me at support@finalfarewell.nz.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I know actually I've got this piece of jewelry, but it's not um, from ashes, but I know that you can get
Oh,
ashes created into a
yes, you
beautiful piece of
can.
jewelry as
Artwork as well. And that's what this book provides. We try to help smaller New Zealand businesses be more made aware of and to provide alternatives for people. So, it doesn't have to be the bog standard kind of package. Let's personalize our celebrations.
yes, make it a celebration. To
Absolutely. Mm.
celebrate the joy and the celebrate the fact, wow, I was so lucky to be have been part of this person's life.
Yeah,
They really were awesome.
absolutely. You could even do your own obituary by
Yeah.
video. At the
Yes,
last say. There you go.
right. So thank you for that. And
Welcome.
if you want to contact Alina, then please do, because this is something we need to embrace and face with
Mm,
truth and honesty, without fear, leaving fear at the door and ask those questions. So
absolutely.
thank you.
I thank you.